Chapter 3 of Alice in Blunderland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Ruth Golding. Alice in Blunderland, An Iridescent Dream, by John Kendrick Bangs. Chapter 3. The Aromatic Gas Plant. After the little party had descended from the marvellous trolley, concerning which the March Hare observed most properly that under private ownership nothing so safe and sane would ever have been thought of, they walked along a beautiful highway, bordered with rose bushes, oleanders, and geraniums, until they came to a lovely little park, at the entrance to which was a huge sign announcing that within was the Blunderland Gas Plant. To tell the truth, Alice had not cared particularly to visit the gasworks, because she had once been driven through what was known at home as the gas-house district, on her way to the ferry, and her recollections of it were not altogether pleasant. As she recalled it, it was in a rather squalid neighbourhood, and the odours emanating from it were not pleasing to what she called her oil factories. But here in Blunderland all was different. Instead of the huge ugly retorts rising up out of the ground, surrounded by a quality of air that one could not breathe with comfort, was as beautiful a garden as any one could wish to wander through, and at its centre there stood a retort, but not one that looked like a great iron skull-cap painted red. On the contrary, the municipally owned retort had architecturally all the classic beauty of a Carnegie library. "We call it the Retort Courteous," said the Hatter pridefully, as he gazed at the structure, and smiled happily as he noted Alice's very evident admiration for it. "You see, in urban affairs, as a mere matter of fitness, we believe in cultivating urbanity, my child, and in consequence everything we do is conceived in a spirit of courtesy. The gas-houses under private ownership have not been what you would call polite. They were almost invariably heavy, rude, staring structures that reared themselves offensively in the public eye, and our first effort was to subliminate—" "Eliminate," whispered the March Hare. "I beg your pardon, Mr. Hare," retorted the Hatter. "I did not mean eliminate, which means to suppress, but subliminate, which means to sublimify or make sublime. I guess I know my own language." "Excuse me," said the March Hare meekly. "I haven't studied the M.O. dictionary beyond the letter Q, Mr. Mayor, and I was not aware that the Common Council had as yet passed favourably upon subliminate either," he added with some feeling. "That is because it was not until yesterday that the Corporation Council decided that subliminate was a constitutional word," said the Hatter sharply. "In view of his report to me, which I wrote myself and therefore know the provisions of, he states that subliminate is a perfectly just and proper word, involving no infringement upon the rights of others, and in no wise impairing the value of innocent vested interests, and is therefore legal. Therefore I shall use it whether the Common Council approves it or not. If they resolve that it is not a good word, I shall veto the resolution. If you don't like it, I'll send you your resignation." "That being the case," said the March Hare, "I withdraw my objections." "Which," observed the Hatter triumphantly, turning to Alice, "shows you, my dear young lady, the very great value of the municipal ownership idea as applied to the Board of Aldermen. As the White Knight put it in one of his poetical reports, printed in volume 347 of the Corporation Council's Opinions for October 1906, page 926, a city may not own its gas, its barber shops, or cars. It may not raise asparagus or run official bars. It may not own a big hotel or keep a public hen, but it will always find it well to own its aldermen. When aldermen were owned by private interests, the public interests suffered. But in this town, where the City Fathers belong to the City, they have to do what the City tells them to, or get out." "It sounds good," was all that Alice could think of to say. "What I was trying to tell you when the Alderman interpolated," the Hatter went on. "There he goes again," growled the March Hare, "was that the first thing we did when we took over the gas plant was to sublimify the externals of the works, along lines of architectural and olfactorial beauty, both to the eye and to the nose, two organs of the human structure that private interests seldom pay much attention to. I asked myself two questions. First, is it necessary for a gasworks to be ugly? Second, is it necessary for gasworks to be so odoriferous that the smell of the automobile is a dream of fragrant beauty alongside of it? To both these questions the answer was plain. Of course it ain't. Beauty can be applied to the lines of a gas tank just as readily as to the lines of a hippopotamus. And as for the odours, they are due to the fact that gas as it is now made does not smell pleasantly, but there is no reason why it should not be so manufactured that people would be willing to use it on their handkerchiefs. I learned that Professor Burbank of California had developed a cactus plant that could be used for a sofa cushion. Why, I asked myself, could he not develop a gas plant that will put forth flowers the perfume of which should make that of the violet and the rose sink into inoculated desuppitude? "It hardly seems possible, does it?" said Alice. "To a private mind it presents insuperable difficulties," said the Hatter. "But to a public mind like my own nothing is impossible. If a man can do a seemingly impossible thing with one plant, there is no reason why he shouldn't do a seemingly impossible thing with another plant. So I immediately wrote to Professor Burbank, offering him $100,000 in Blunderland deferred debenture gas improvement bonds a year to come here and see what he could do to transmogrify our gas plant." "Oh, I am so glad!" cried Alice delightedly. "I should so love to meet Mr. Burbank and thank him for inventing the coreless apple." "You don't mean the coreless engine, do you?" asked the White Knight. "Well, I'm sorry," said the Hatter, "but Mr. Burbank wouldn't come unless we'd pay him real money, which, although we don't publish the fact broadcast, is not in strict accord with the highest principles of municipal ownership. We contend that when people work for the common weal they ought to be satisfied to receive their pay in the commonwealth, and under the M.O. system the most common kind of wealth is represented by bonds. Consequently we wrote again to Mr. Burbank and expressed our regret that a man of his genius should care more for his own selfish interests than for the public weal, and as a sort of sarcasm on his meanness I enclosed 5 of our 2963 guaranteed extension 4% to pay for the 2-cent stamp he had put upon his letter." "What are the 2963 guaranteed extension 4%?" asked Alice. "They are sinking fund bonds payable in 2963, only we guarantee to extend the date of payment to 3963 in case the sinking fund has sunk so low we don't feel like paying them in 2963, explained the Hatter. "It's an ingenious financial idea that I got from studying the economic theories of Dr. Wack, Professor of Repudiation and Other Political Economies at the Wack Business College at Squantumville, Florida. It is the only economic theory I know of that absolutely prevents debt from becoming a burden. But that aside, when Mr. Burbank showed that he preferred fooling with